Welcome, everyone, to the Arlington Committee of 100's program for this month, which is also our annual meeting. The program is entitled Arlington's Outdoor Dining, What's Next on the Menu? My name is Jerry Laporte. I'm the chairperson of the Arlington Committee of 100. I want to start out by thanking Patrick Hope and John Weistat, co-chairs of the Arlington Committee of 100's Program Committee, for their efforts in organizing tonight's program. I'd also like to recognize Hannah Denenfelser for her technical and other assistance in putting together this program. Hannah's awesome talents and assistance are really important for us to be able to do what we do. We're going to begin our meeting this evening with the annual meeting of the members of the Committee of 100. We'll try to keep it short. Let me see. There we go. The agenda for the annual meeting is set forth on your screens. Those of you who are, the agenda is, first of all, we're going to do the election of officers and directors. Then we're going to consider proposed amended and restated articles of incorporation. And then we're going to do a look at vote on a proposed amendment of the bylaws. Those of you who are members of the Committee of 100 should have received an email message about May the 20th with attachments consisting of the official notice of the meeting, along with an information statement which discusses the the matters to be discussed during the meeting. So if you don't have that email or information statement handy, you can click on your screen and click on the link, and you'll have access to the information statement. Or you can also scan the QR code on your screen, and that will also give you access to the information statement. If anybody has any questions during the annual meeting or wants to raise an issue, just use the chat box. In your information statement on the screen, you'll find the names of the persons approved by the Board of Directors as nominees for the offices and director slots listed and recommended for election by the board. We've got Jean Broyhill nominated for chair of the committee, Liz Nora nominated for vice chair, myself nominated for secretary, and Chuck Morley nominated for treasurer. Chuck is the only nominee whose name is shown on the screen and who was not included in information statement, and neither was his bio included in the information in the email that accompanied the information statement, but he's been a member of the committee's board twice in the past and is well known in the community. The names of all the other director at large nominees were included in the information statement, as well as their bios. Their names are on the screen. They are Duke Banks, Karen Bate, Brian Coleman, Link Cummings, Hannah Dannenfelser, Krista Jones, Lanny Cass, Norm Cass, Richard Lolich, Amanda Molina, Devanshi Patel, Daniel Sanchez, Doug Taylor, John Weistat, Victoria Virasingh, and Tony Weaver. Since these nominees are all recommended for election to the board, they don't require a second. So what we're going to do here is ask the voting members of the Arlington Committee of 100, all of whose names, we have 74 voting members. Their names are all on the screen. If you agree with electing the board nominated slate, please respond to the poll that's going to appear on your screen and say yes, no, or abstain. I'm going to give people a few minutes to vote on the slate. I don't see anything in the chat box. Anybody trying to nominate anybody from the floor. So I guess we'll go with the slate. So we have 13 people voting. We only need 8 members to constitute quorum, so that's enough. And it's, I guess, I don't know if I should give people more time to answer the poll. If you see your name up there and you want to vote for this slate or against it or abstain, please do so. Okay, I guess we'll go with the 13 votes. People have had enough time. Okay. We have 13 in favor, none opposed, so we'll go to the next issue. The next issue is the before I do that, I want to congratulate the people who are on the board approved slate who have now been elected as officers and directors for the Arlington Committee of 100 for the year beginning July the 1st, 2023. And I want to especially congratulate Jean Broyhill, who's just been elected as our new chairperson. Jean was also chairperson of the Committee of 100 in 2012, and with her recent election, becomes the Grover Cleveland of the Arlington Committee of 100, the first and only person ever to have been elected to non-consecutive terms as chair of the Arlington Committee of 100, as Grover Cleveland was the only president to have been elected to non-consecutive terms as president. Thus far, that is. So no further comment on the thus far. We're not going to go there tonight. If I had thought about it earlier, I would have purchased a Grover Cleveland bobblehead. I looked online, by the way, and Grover Cleveland bobbleheads are available. I could have purchased one of those and given it to Jean, but she told me this afternoon she doesn't want a Grover Cleveland bobblehead anyway, so I'm glad I didn't buy one. Now that those issues are over, we're going to actually, one further thing before we go on to the Articles of Incorporation and bylaw amendments. I want to recognize the service of those members of the Arlington Committee of 100's board who have decided not to seek re-election to the board. Lizette Arias, who was this year's vice chair, Timon Honda, who was a past chair of the Committee of 100, who's been our treasurer for several years, Patrick Hope, who's been a director for several years, and Lynn Jewell, a past chair who's been on the board for many years. All of them have done yeoman work as members of the board of the Committee of 100. We thank them for their service, and we will miss them. That doesn't mean that we don't hope that they'll stop by and maybe serve on some of our committees and continue to attend our programs, but they won't be members of the Board of Election Board of Directors, starting July the 1st. On your screen, you'll see the next items that are on the agenda. Those of you who have read the information statement know that the first item is a proposed new set of amended and restated Articles of Incorporation for the Arlington Committee of 100. The first proposed amendment would change the structure of our organization so that the directors elect their successors rather than having voting members elect the directors. This is the culmination of several years of effort, mostly under the leadership of my predecessor as chair of the Arlington Committee of 100, Hannah Dannenfelser, to reimagine the Arlington Committee of 100 for the indefinite future and to modernize and update our structure. After much debate among the directors, we've decided that we're more like an educational or research organization or a museum rather than a group operated for the benefit of members, and that our membership structure should reflect that. educational and research organizations like public broadcasters, WETA and WAMU, private schools and universities typically have boards of directors who elect their successors rather than member elected boards of directors, because they're not operated for the benefit of members. They're operated for the general public, as the Arlington Committee of 100 is. Also, at our annual meetings in recent years to elect officers and directors have become somewhat formulaic, and with this change, we'll be able to relieve the organization of member meeting notice, quorum, and documentation requirements, all as explained in the official statement. So now I'd like to call a vote on these proposed amended and restated articles of incorporation, which you can find in the information statement. If you have any questions, please vote yes, no. We'd like to get a unanimous vote on this, because if we don't, we're going to have to go to a roll call vote. We would like to get a unanimous vote, because if we get a unanimous vote, we only have to file a short form with the state of Virginia. So if that one person who voted no wants to change their vote, we'd like them to do that so we can avoid having to file the long form with the state of Virginia. If they don't, we're going to have to go to a roll call vote here. So we'll need 2/3 of those voting to, and we have 74 names to call on the roll call vote. So I'm asking that person who voted no if they'd like to change their vote. Apparently they don't want to. So Jean, who's the secretary, you want to call the roll on this, the articles of incorporation changes? Can you unmute Jean, please, Hannah?
Is this all the 72 names?
Yes, I think there's 74.
And then how do we recognize, how are they to be recognized?
No, just, okay. Well, we do have a 2/3 vote.
Yeah, I mean, you've got.
And it'll be recorded. So I guess we can just end the poll here and just go. Yes. We have a 2/3 vote. We don't have to go through the roll call. That's fine. Okay. So the next set of amendments is also amendments to the Articles of Incorporation, and these amendments would add provisions recommended by the IRS to our Articles of Incorporation to help us regain our status as an organization exempt from federal taxation under Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code. We lost our 501c3 status several years ago for failure to file required reports. So we'd like to regain our 501c3 status, but because of the provisions, the 501c3 provisions in our current bylaws, we think it's a better idea to put them in the Articles of Incorporation and use the precise words that the IRS recommends. So that's what these amendments would do. And the language that we would put into the Articles of Incorporation is word for word the language recommended by the IRS. So we haven't tried to change it at all. So can you set up the poll for the, we don't want the bylaw amendments. Okay. You know, I think we're going to have to go back to the previous poll. Can you reopen that poll, Hannah? Because I guess I should have included the IRS amendments with the
Which
amendments.
poll are you asking me to go back to?
We don't want the bylaw amendments yet. We want we want to reopen the poll on the Articles of Incorporation, because there's two sets of amendments. There's one on having the directors elect their successors, And then the second one is adding the IRS recommended provisions for the to regain our 501c3 status. So both those sets of amendments, those are all sets of amendments to the Articles of Incorporation. So we want people to vote on both those sets of amendments. And I only previously asked them to vote on the amendments that would approve the directors electing their successors.
All right, it's
Okay.
going to take me a minute to figure out how to create a new poll because we didn't have it set up that way. I'm happy to do it. It's just going to take me a minute.
Okay. Well, let's go to the bylaw amendments then, okay? The bylaw amendment, and that's since that's on the third proposal that we're asking you to vote on tonight is an amendment to our bylaws.
Hey,
that
Jerry,
would
can we stay, because I can't do both at the same time. We've got to pause and figure out the Articles of Incorporation one if I'm going to do that. I'm just trying to figure out how to shuffle a little bit. Are you wanting, so we want two separate polls for question 1 for Articles of Incorporation, question 2, right?
I said that, why don't we just include them in one? I think the poll was fine, but
Okay.
I just explained,
Ask for a pre-meeting.
I just asked for a vote on the first set of amendments to the articles, not for the second. So I'd like people to go back and consider both sets of amendments to the Articles of Incorporation at the same time as your question, I think, was written.
Are you wanting to relaunch the exact same poll as what we
Yes.
did? We just want to do it over.
Yes, just do the first poll over and people will be voting on both sets of amendments to the Articles of Incorporation rather than just the set of amendments that
Okay.
includes
And
the proposal to have the directors elect their successors.
okay, this is gonna wipe out, it is gonna remove the
That's
prior
fine.
polling results.
That's
Okay.
fine.
All right. That should
Okay,
be up
so-
now.
Yeah. So everybody vote on both sets of amendments, which is the change that the directors will elect their successors and the change that we'll put the IRS recommended 501c3 provisions in the Articles of Incorporation, take them out of the bylaws, change them a little bit so they precisely track the recommendations from the IRS. So I need to see some more people. It looks like only 2 people are voting on the Articles of Incorporation. Okay. Is there any explanation why no more people are not voting? Do you know?
I'm not sure. If you can't see the poll for some reason, could you mark that in the chat? It should be on your screen.
I
Okay.
can see the.
I see one person saying they can't see the poll.
Yeah, I can't see the poll either.
Okay, I'm gonna stop it. And then gonna do this over again. Okay, I think it should be relaunched now. Everybody should be able
Okay.
to- okay,
Yeah,
I
I
see that
see
it's coming
people.
in. Sorry, I'm not sure what the issue was.
Yeah.
Okay, we have people voting. And this vote is unanimous, so this replaces the prior vote. So unless we get somebody voting in the negative, we'll be able to file the short form with the state of Virginia for all these amendments on the second vote. Okay, it looks like the poll is ended. Okay.
No, he just, I couldn't,
Can we go to the third poll?
With the bylaws one,
Right, the
I'm sorry, I'm
bylaws.
losing track, the bylaws one. So we're gonna relaunch
Bylaws
that
poll,
one
yeah.
and wipe what we did before.
Okay, the bylaw, the third proposal we're asking you to vote on tonight is an amendment to our bylaws that would remove the requirement that all bylaw amendments must be ratified by the membership. Again, this was explained in the information statement that all voting members received around May the 20th. This onerous requirement to require member ratification of all bylaws about amendments has caused the Committee of 100 to avoid making necessary changes to our bylaws over the years. It's also not consistent. It's unwieldy. It's also not consistent with contemporary corporate governance standards or with our newly adopted format of having the directors elect their successors. So please vote to whether you would like to whether you approve the bylaw amendment that would remove the requirement that all bylaws amendments need to be approved by the membership. That would mean that bylaw amendments would be approved just by the board of directors. Okay, it looks like we're unanimous. We only need a majority of those voting for this one. We got 14 to 14, so we're unanimous on that one too. Okay. Now, these are the people who were eligible to vote. Okay. Since all these, now we're ready to get to the guts of tonight's program. I apologize for the business portion of this meeting which lasted longer than I had hoped. This program is entitled The Future of Arlington's Outdoor Dining, What's on the Menu? If you have any questions, you can use the chat box on your Zoom screen at any time, and the questions that are submitted in the chat box will be sent to me, and I'll ask them in the question and answer session after the panelists have made their initial presentations. As our first speaker tonight, we have Brett Wallace. We're very pleased to welcome Brett back to the Arlington Committee of 100. Brett is a principal planner, urban designer in the urban design section within the Arlington County Planning Division. Brett's responsible for the design review and project management of both Arlington County and private development projects, including area master plans, complete streets, public spaces, and the development of policy recommendations. Brett is currently leading the Future of Outdoor Dining, note the acronym FOOD, or food study. We like acronyms like that. A study focused on examining which aspects of Arlington's flexible temporary outdoor seating areas program, which I think was adopted during the pandemic, which aspects of that program should be incorporated into Arlington's existing approval pathways for permanent outdoor cafes. Before joining Arlington County in 2012, Brett worked as an urban designer in the public and private sectors in New York City. He is a registered landscape architect. I'm going to go ahead and introduce all the speakers and then let them take over so we don't have delays caused by changing screens here. Our second speaker tonight is John Musso. John is Government Affairs Manager at the Arlington Chamber of Commerce. He's a graduate of George Washington University, where he earned a degree in political science. Before working for the Chamber, John worked as a local government associate at the Roslyn-based consulting firm Stateside Associates. John's a native of northern New Jersey, but has called Arlington home since 2018 and currently lives in the courthouse neighborhood. Our third speaker tonight is Grace Shea, who is a member of the family that has owned Lebanese Taverna in Arlington. The restaurant has been open since 1979. I don't think Grace has been working there since then. Grace is well known in the community. She serves on the board of the Arlington Food Assistance Center, on the board of the Chamber of Commerce, and on the board of directors of the National Restaurant Association. That's the good NRA. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let Brett start sharing his screen and let you hear what you came to hear tonight. Brett.
Thank you, Jerry, and good evening, everybody. Let me go ahead and pull my screen up, and if I could just get a quick nod on whether folks can see my slide. Good evening again. My name is Brett Wallace. Glad to be here. I'm with Arlington County Planning Division, Urban Design Team, and I'm leading the Future of Outdoor Dining Study, or the food study, one of our more playful acronyms in the county. And so I have a brief slide deck that I'm going to run through. Let me see if I can just go full screen mode here. Okay, hopefully that's better. So in terms of the study schedule for the food study, staff launched the study last fall in August when the county manager removed the emergency order. We began phase 1 of the study in the fall of last year, where we're really looking at the temporary outdoor seating areas, or TOSAs, looking at our existing policies. We did some research on some neighboring jurisdictions and other communities across the nation, and we conducted some community engagement events last fall, including a couple of virtual roundtable events and an online feedback forum where we received over 2,000 responses. Then moving into the winter spring timeframe, we moved into phase 2, where we were really taking the information that we gathered during phase 1 to help inform some of the framework recommendations that you'll be seeing this evening for the future of outdoor dining in Arlington. We're currently in phase 3 of the study, where we're meeting with relevant county commissions. We're presenting zoning ordinance text amendments for a new permanent outdoor dining program, including updates to the outdoor cafe guidelines. Actually, just last night, we presented to the county board a request to advertise to authorize public hearings by the Planning Commission and the county board to review the proposed zoning ordinance text amendments. And we're going to continue to do commission review over the next coming weeks, leading up to a July Planning Commission and County Board action on the proposed zoning ordinance text amendments. And just to note that the TOSA program, or the temporary outdoor seating program, which was established over the pandemic, that I'll review in a minute, will be ending on August the 15th, which is at the end of the continuity of governance ordinance. So just a quick overview of the food study. The purpose and the primary goals was really to look at the temporary outdoor seating program that was developed over the pandemic, to see what could fit into a more permanent outdoor cafe program within Arlington County. We also look to inform other changes to regulations for how we manage outdoor cafes within the public space and the private properties. And bottom line, we want to create a clear pathway forward for outdoor cafes and current TOSA permit holders to transition from the TOSA era into a more permanent outdoor cafe program. Early on in the study, staff established some overarching study themes that you see on the bottom of the slide, including restaurants as a public good, understanding that restaurants really contribute to a vibrant streetscape and street life activity, looking at restaurant recovery and resiliency, how we can support restaurants and local business to bounce back from pandemic-related losses. And then again, thinking about outdoor cafes and restaurants as different places and different spaces Not everyone outdoor cafe is alike. Each one is unique to its specific context. So the temporary outdoor seating areas, or TOSAs, as well, I'll refer to a lot in my presentation, were established early on in 2020 to help restaurants and businesses during the COVID-19 pandemic. This was really when, at a time where dining indoors was not an option, and so dining outdoors was really the only option for restaurants. So the staff developed a set of flexible design and operation guidelines, including an online submission process that was free of charge, with a review by an interdepartmental staff team, and all the TOSA permits were approved by the county manager. We currently have in the county approximately 100 TOSAs that are both on public and private property that are in operation today. And again, these TOSAs will be expiring on August the 15th with the termination of the continuity of governance ordinance. Just a couple of examples on the screen here showing some outdoor cafes and TOSAs. I think some of these really illustrate some of the issues that and concerns that we have heard over the past 3 years with the outdoor cafes, and what we call cafe creep, where we start to have cafes creating pinch points on the sidewalk, creating sometimes impassable areas for pedestrians and those with disabilities to circulate around the outdoor cafes. Just some other examples here, as you can see. We also have some other examples of TOSAs where restaurants have taken the opportunity to convert private parking spaces into outdoor cafe patios, like in the example that you see here. Some other examples here on the top of the screen of those conversion of parking spaces, or in some cases, conversion of an entire parking lot into a outdoor cafe space. And then we also have examples where the county allowed restaurants to encompass the entire sidewalk from the building face to the curb for outdoor cafe seating, moving pedestrians into the on-street parking lane for pedestrian circulation. So these are just some of the examples of TOSAs throughout the pandemic. And in terms of the phase 1 engagement we conducted last fall, was really centered around how the community feels about the existing temporary outdoor seating areas. In general, we heard a lot of support for the local businesses, enjoyment for outdoor dining, vibrant streetscapes. I think as the images that I previously showed, concerns for safe, accessible pedestrian circulation. We did hear some support for reduced parking and expanded outdoor dining options, but above all, we heard loud and clear the need to streamline the review process to make things easier for restaurants moving forward, which is consistent with our current recommendations that I'll cover really quickly here. So with there are 3 key elements that are part of the recommended framework with staff's recommendations. The first 2 of which were presented to the county board as subjects of the request to advertise just last night. The first item is the zoning ordinance amendments. Staff is recommending amendments to permit outdoor seating in public spaces by an administrative review process. So currently, outdoor cafes in the public realm are reviewed by the county board by use permit. It's typically a 3-month process. It's a minimum of $2,000 plus additional cost. It's very timely and costly for the staff and the applicant in terms of resources spent. We're also recommending the ability for the county board to modify parking requirements for outdoor cafe seats that are located on required private parking spaces, like in some of the examples that I previously shown. We're also recommending other amendments to further the study goals and recommendations. The second item, which is the encroachment ordinance and outdoor cafe license. This is proposed to be a new county code chapter, which will be including an administrative process for review of outdoor cafes in the public realm with requirements for a license, an application, and a fee. This is stemming from the 2015 Arlington County Retail Plan, which encouraged staff to develop an administrative process for the licensing of the public realm by a private entity. And then the third item, which is an administrative document, is the outdoor cafe guidelines, last updated 10 years ago. This is really an all-in-one reference manual for restaurants and applicants that'll include information on the application and permitting process, including guidance for clear sidewalk widths and pedestrian safety, as well as fire and building code requirements as well. So this table here summarizes the existing and proposed process. Staff has identified 3 different types of outdoor cafes, the first being private property, where it's unencumbered by public easements. Those are currently approved by right administratively by staff, by the zoning administrator. Staff is recommending to move that forward in the proposed recommendations. The type 2, which is the public rights of way or public easements on private property, which also includes privately owned public spaces or POPs. Currently, those are approved by the county board by use permit. Staff is recommending to move number 2, public rights of way sidewalks, to an administrative by right review by staff. However, staff is recommending to continue the county board use permit review by for the privately owned public spaces. So just a summary quickly of the proposed zoning ordinance text amendments. Really, the amendments reflect the changes for the approved or the recommended approval process for the 3 different types that I just discussed on the previous slide. So I'm not going to read through those, but just wanted to close the presentation with the outdoor cafes in the public space. Staff is really proposing a more streamlined administrative review process. The benefits include not only streamlining the process, but also reduce cost, time, and resources for both county staff and the applicant. And will also include the proposed outdoor cafe license. So in terms of next steps, I mentioned we met with the county board last night with a request to advertise. We'll be meeting with the Park and Recreation Commission next week and the Transportation Commission on the 29th before going to the Planning Commission and County Board for action on the zoning ordinance amendments and the encroachment ordinance. So some of the activity that we're anticipating will occur after the July County Board meeting is staff is currently in the process of conducting in-person direct engagement with restaurants that currently have TOSAs. So we're working on this currently, and we'll continue to work on this through late July. We're expecting interested restaurants will file pertinent applications by August 15th, which is the end of the continuity of governance ordinance. And then we have an interdepartmental staff team that's committed to working with each of the applicants and restaurants in the estimated time frame of 90 to 120 days, which puts us into the latter part of this year in the November-December timeframe, which is typically the end of the outdoor dining season, where we anticipate that decisions on administrative or use permit applications will be determined. Just here quickly, we welcome your feedback. Just providing a link here to the project website, which includes a lot of materials and presentations, including a staff report that was presented last night to the county board, and then my contact information if anybody has questions or wants to email me after this meeting. That's all I have, so thank you.
All right. Well, I guess I can go ahead and start. So thank you, Brett, for providing sorry, Brett, could you exit your screen share just so I could pull up my slides? Thank you. Yeah, so thank you, Brett, very much for providing a really good overview of just what the county has been up to in terms of the outdoor dining. So I just want to have just a brief presentation just to provide a little bit of information on how the Chamber of Commerce fits into all of this. So I think the majority of you know quite a lot about what the chamber does overall, but just to give you a little bit of a high level overview, and more importantly, just some facts on where I stand in this. The chamber is a nonprofit member organization of more than 750 businesses of all sizes that is committed to strengthening businesses and the overall economic environment of Arlington. And advocacy is one of our 4 pillars here at the chamber, and the advocacy sector is primarily led by myself, and that encompasses a whole range of different things, from providing members with information. I'm sure some of you have been to different committee meetings of ours. Brett was actually very generous with his time to give a presentation to our Government Affairs and Economic Development Committee recently, and providing that sort of information and access has always been really helpful for our members and a core component of our advocacy effort. In addition, we're also focused on advocating on behalf of the overall interests of our business community, and that's usually developed by pulling together all the collective thoughts and opinions of our business community into one cohesive set of policy positions that I act on throughout the course of the year. And as you can see in that photo of myself down there, that sometimes involves going to county board meetings, as I was last night discussing the food study. So just to give a little bit of a overview, among the 750 members of the chamber, I believe over 70 are restaurants as of last review. And just like many other cities and towns, we're aware that restaurants are some of the more recognizable and well-known small businesses in the area. And we're aware that when an issue like TOSAs and the future of outdoor dining comes up, there's a lot of people who are concerned about it, because oftentimes people's first view of a local business is often a local restaurant that they're a fan of. And so we're very aware that obviously we have many members that we're all very proud of, everyone from very large companies that are headquartered in Arlington, Amazon, Boeing, Nestle, down to a very local, small law firms, catering firms, marketing professionals, and restaurants. We're very proud of this, but we're also aware that restaurants are a very core component of this. And we're also very happy to have a very diverse set of restaurant membership. You'll hear from one of our members, Grace Shea, in just a few minutes. I just wanted to bring up this one photo here because you can see it a lot. I'm sure if any of you have been reading the food study or different updates, I just quite find this funny because this includes actually not one but 3 chamber businesses. In the foreground, it's McNamara's pub. In the middle ground, it's Freddy's Beach Bar, and just off into the distance, it's Crystal City Sports Pub. All 3 very proud chamber members. So I just wanted to make a note of that. So just to give a little bit of background in terms of the advocacy specifically on this, ever since TOSAs were initially adopted, like Brett said, in the early stages of the COVID-19 pandemic as a way to circumvent existing restrictions on indoor dining. Ever since then, the opinion from the general public, from restaurant operators, from people in the county and both the chamber has been positive. And really, ever since it kind of kicked into gear, there was a push to figure out, okay, how could we make this a permanent addition to our streetscape? Just because the benefit that it's brought, aside from just keeping these restaurants in business, has been very beneficial. I mean, a lot of people like having the ability to dine outdoor on nights as pleasant as this one, for instance. And so the chamber had been involved in this push really from the beginning, from about late 2020, early 2021 for sure. And just to show our work, I just included a quick headline and excerpt from an article from Arlington Now from the summer of 2021, which feels much longer than just 2 years ago. But we were advocating for this type of change to occur then. And obviously there's been a whole process just because the pandemic has been in different phases. There's a lot of different moving parts for this. And so we're very happy that this is finally coming to fruition as we speak. And like Brett said, July 15th, when we'll finally have the rules fully adopted, hopefully by the board. So just to give kind of a brief idea of where we're going to go from here, and going back to the title question, what's next on the menu, come July 15th, once these rules are adopted, like Brett said, there becomes a whole different set of phases that are going to be included. as we move towards getting everything set up, and obviously with the awareness that the TOSHA rules expire on August 15th. So the chamber, we are very happy to be working alongside the county to get a lot of this information out, just because obviously in a situation like this, there's a lot of different elements to these permitting issues. There's a lot of different facets because every restaurant's outdoor space is different, because every restaurant in Arlington is distinct. And so we're very aware that we have a unique ability to get this information out to the business community. And that's something that I personally look forward to doing in the next few weeks to the month. And again, basically because the chamber and the county both agree that we want to make sure this is as efficient and smooth a move for restaurant operators who want this permanent outdoor dining as possible. And so we're very much looking forward to continuing this conversation. And I do appreciate being allowed to join forums like this, where we provide both a chamber view, a county view, and an operator view to this very important thing that a lot of Arlingtonians are looking forward to reaching its conclusion. So thank you very much, and we can move on to the next speaker. Thank you.
Grace?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
And can you see me? Hold on. Good evening, everyone. I am Grace Shea from Lebanese Taverna. And Jerry, I was working at the restaurant. I was only 4 years old, but I was passing out business cards to my kindergarten teachers at what was Reed Elementary at the time. So I look much younger than I actually am. So my family owns and operates Lebanese Taverna. We have 14 locations in the DC area, and Arlington having 3 of those locations: Pentagon Row, Westover, and Langston Boulevard, where the market is. And I first want to say thank you for the TOSAs during COVID. It was what kept our business alive. I mean, between takeout and those outdoor cafes, we really we wouldn't still be here. So they were lifesavers for us, for our family, for our employees, and they continue to be really important parts of our business. Now, our Westover location, I can speak to my experience about 15 years ago. And Brett, you're talking about some changes that happened 10 years ago, which I'm glad to hear, because 15 years ago, it was quite the ordeal to get our 12 seats in Westover. It cost us about $20,000 at the time, because we had to get a whole site plan, which it was an old building and our landlord didn't have a site plan. And it took more than 3 months at that time, and a lot of money. And we got 12 seats, and we love those 12 seats, and those 12 seats have been amazing. But if you break it down, cost per seat, it really is not cost efficient. And we were very lucky during COVID. We took up most of the parking lot, and everyone, including our landlords and the county, was supportive of that. And as I mentioned, it really helped us a lot. But I want to talk to outdoor dining in general for restaurants. When we're looking for locations, how much outdoor dining space there is definitely a factor in where we want to open a new location. First it enhances the streetscape of the building where we live. I mean, where the restaurant is. It attracts people. If you have a building and there's no outdoor seating, even a few seats, it really is flat. And so it's a very welcoming atmosphere to have those seats outside. And obviously it's additional revenue that we don't pay rent for, right? So during those months when people want to be outside, we can maximize that revenue by having additional seats. It also helps with the economy, because like at our Pentagon Road location, our restaurant almost doubles in size with the outdoor patio. And so we are hiring a lot more people and then employing more people during that time. It also it is highly sought after. There are many nights where we have seats inside, but we have a line for people wanting to sit outside. And it's really kind of a hard thing because once people sit outside, they don't leave. It's an enjoyable experience. Not only are they getting delicious food, hopefully Lebanese food, but any other food they might be enjoying in Arlington, the seats don't turn over as quickly as they do inside because people are enjoying the scenery, what they're watching, the weather, even nature around them, the birds. And so it really does enhance our restaurant experience. And obviously during COVID, we learned that it was safer to be outside. And I think that continues now for those who are immunocompromised. It's not unusual for us to get phone calls to say, can we guarantee us a space outside? I'm coming with my father or my grandfather, and we won't sit inside with them in a restaurant. Now, it might not be COVID anymore, but it might be flu season or, the spring and, some viruses going around. So even though we're past COVID, for the most part, there are still times where people want to sit outside for those in their family or loved ones that are immunocompromised. So that's definitely, and we'll even in the winter, in the dead of winter, I will have one table, maybe two people sitting outside because they don't want to sit inside. And it's really important for them to make it work to sit outside. And of course, we accommodate them whenever we can. I think I just really wanted to speak to that. I mean, we're very lucky in Arlington. We always have the support of the community and the county. And I know we'll find a way to make this a win-win for everyone.
Thank you, Grace. Now it's time for questions. If you have questions, please put them in the chat box. I just checked the chat box and didn't, actually, I'm supposed to get the questions sent to me. I haven't had any sent to me yet. So as you were talking, I had some questions of my own. So maybe I'll start with my own questions until we get some input in the chat box. I guess my first question is, what changes can we expect if the recommended changes are approved by the county board? Or will it just everything stay in place the way it is? Brett, I guess you're the best person to answer that, and maybe Grace and John can chime in if they have an answer to that question.
And I covered that in my presentation. I apologize if it wasn't clear. I was trying to get through it quickly, but we identified 3 different types of outdoor cafes. We have outdoor cafes that are on public property or public sidewalks. We have outdoor cafes that are on privately owned public spaces or in pocket parks or plazas that have public access. And then we also have outdoor cafes that are completely on private property. And we've further broken those 3 types down into other categories because we like to make things complicated. But we have outdoor cafes that are approved, that are part of site plan projects, like new development projects. We have site plan or outdoor cafes that have use permits approval by the county board. And then we have outdoor cafes on private property. And so we have broken them down into different categories. We're currently in the process right now of developing these individual packets for restaurant owners. Because I know that not all restaurant owners know exactly all the full details of their property. They just want to know what they need to do to come into compliance and continue to serve outdoor patrons and continue with their operations. And so we're trying to internally make things easier for each individual restaurant owner, depending on whatever typology you fall within. That there's a clear step-by-step process in terms of the different permitting and application processes. So I think the big takeaway from our recommendations coming out of this food study is really moving from the county board use permit for outdoor cafes on public sidewalks or public space moving from a use permit approval, which is, as I mentioned earlier, takes a minimum of 3 months and at a minimum of $2,000 and even more, including a public hearing by the county board and numerous other deadlines. We're moving from that process to an administrative review process, which we're looking at keeping under 30 days rather than 3 months, and a lot less costly for both the applicant and staff in terms of resources. So that is one big change we're recommending, is again moving from use permit to an administrative review process for outdoor cafes in the public realm. And then for those applications where outdoor cafes are using private parking spaces, where they've converted parking spaces in a private parking lot to outdoor cafes, we're moving to have those cases reviewed by the county board by use permit, because currently the zoning ordinance mandates that parking spaces can only be used for the parking of vehicles and nothing else. And so over the pandemic, we had several locations that, converted parking spaces to outdoor cafes. And so in order for those to continue, they would need to apply for a use permit by the county board, for the county board to modify the required parking spaces that are required by the zoning ordinance. And so those are the two big changes, I think, for both the public and the private property. Happy to provide any more info as well.
Okay, we have a question. First of all, I noticed in the chat box, some people are wanting to get recognized, and you get recognized by typing a question into the chat box. We're not going to unmute people and allow them to speak. We're going to ask people to ask their questions in the form of a question in the chat box, and then pass them through so I can ask the questions. But we have a question from Lanny Cass, and her question is, how can we help make this permanent? She says every town in Europe, the Middle East, and Asia has tons of outdoor dining. So I don't know if any of you have any suggestions on people who like outdoor dining, how we can help increase or make it permanent in Arlington.
I can just say something briefly about that, just because I think I'm just interpreting the question in terms of just how can citizens of Arlington make sure that this gets done and gets done in a smart way. And I think one of the obvious ways would essentially just be to let the county board know of your opinions, just as they go through towards the July board meetings, in terms of writing comments or even appearing at the, I believe it's July 15th, Saturday, July 15th meeting with the permit rules, and just express your past experiences in terms of what you want from outdoor dining and why you believe that this package is a step in the right direction. It is exactly what we want for restaurants. And I think just kind of beyond that, in terms of just being engaged, at least just about just this transition towards a permanent state. So I hope that actually kind of answers the question.
Any further responses? Okay, let's move on to the next question. And this isn't identified, but I'll ask the question. It says, did I hear correctly that the TOSAs end on August the 15th and there won't be permit approval until November for outdoor restaurant seating? I guess that's the question. And I guess the sub question is, what happens in the meantime? Is there like a continuing resolution that allows them to stay, or do they have to close up? I guess, Brett, you might be the right person to answer that question too. John or Grace, you may know the answer to. Okay, Brett, go ahead.
I was for some reason not able to unmute myself. I had a slide speaking to this earlier. So the county board will be taking action on the proposed regulations on July 15th. So county staff is currently working on the mechanics. We're working on how to do targeted outreach to different restaurant owners beginning July 15th, between July 15th and August 15th, to give them the necessary information they need to come into compliance or bring their TOSAs into compliance and to obtain any necessary permits. We're looking to have applicants file or at least demonstrate a good faith demonstration to move forward with an application to bring their TOSAs into compliance by August the 15th. And then after August 15th, we'll be looking to, as an interdepartmental team, to review those applications over a 90 to 120 day period. It has been a previous practice that if applicants are demonstrating a good faith effort to proceed with an application to come into compliance, that the county would not be doing any active enforcement of the zoning. We're still working on the mechanics, but again, we want to, the goal is not to have anybody be completely shut down on August 15th. The goal is to work with each of the applicants to come into compliance and to obtain the necessary permits needed. And so beginning after August 15th, if not sooner, we're going to be working with each individual restaurant and applicant to go through the necessary steps.
That's good to hear, Brett, because as you can imagine, August 15th, I mean, it's not going to affect me personally or Lebanese Taverna, but August 15th is the middle of the season, and most patios go through October 15th. So it's good to hear that as long as they've started the process, it seems that there's some flexibility, because ideally this would end October 15th or November 15th. And then those people that did not, or restaurants that did not want to continue this, would just close up the TOSAs and not continue, or if they wanted to continue, they would start the new procedures.
Hey, just a quick note. I just got a notification that my battery's about to die. I need to go get my power cord. I'll be right back in like 2 minutes. So I'll be right back. Thank you.
Okay. So Grace or John, do you have any comments to make? Interstices to fill in while Brett is gone?
Yeah, I would just mostly reiterate what Grace was saying. I mean, obviously the main key as this process goes forward is ensuring that the county works in good faith with restaurants who are going to be going through this process, just because, you know, we want, like I said in the presentation, we want to make sure this is as seamless as possible. And I think the key is just to make sure, you know, come August 16th, there will be a case where the restaurants who are waiting on these permits at least have some understanding, hopefully by like a direct, you know, potentially face-to-face interaction from the county, just reiterating, okay, we are aware that you're working through the process, you're taking steps in the right direction, you're acting in good faith. Therefore, we're not going to enforce exactly what it means when the TOSAs expire, if that makes sense. Just to reiterate Grace's point and some of Brett's previous analysis.
Okay. Do either of you have any suggestions on ways the county could act further to increase or, I mean, assuming most people seem to be in favor of outdoor dining, okay? There's some people who don't like it for various reasons, but I think Brett responded to some of the concerns that people have, like disabled people can't walk on the sidewalks and things like that. I think that's something that they're taking a look at, but there's other things that the county could do that aren't on the table right now to increase outdoor dining and the streetscape in terms of restaurants.
To be honest, it sounds like what's being proposed is very reasonable. I think first and foremost, making it easier for small businesses, restaurants to obtain those permits. Like I said, 15 years ago, it was 6 months, $20,000, and it was quite the ordeal. And only being an Arlingtonian myself, did I continue and persevere to make sure that happened. So it sounds like a lot of what's being proposed is reasonable for both the restaurateurs and for the community. Obviously, you know, people with disabilities, and you need right of way for fire, and that should not be, you know, taking whole parking lots was one thing during COVID. But I you know, as a restaurateur, I don't think anyone expects for those to continue, you know, post-pandemic. But what's being proposed seems to make it easier for everyone. And you know, it's a win-win. It would be a win-win.
Yeah, I
Right, I
have
was just saying how great the proposal was.
Yeah, one thing I didn't hear talked about was some restaurants, or I guess the county shut off some parking during COVID so that restaurants could put tables on the street. And some of the restaurants for whom those parking spaces were set aside have not been using them. So the county is losing parking revenue, and they actually don't look very good because trash is kind of collecting in those places. And so I guess, is there a plan to give back that parking to people and take it away from restaurants that aren't using it? Brett, is that part of your study?
I don't know until Brett can come on, but I will say, Jerry, in DC, they've made those structures permanent. There are these new, they've taken parking spaces and revenue away from the city and made really cute outdoor, and they're actually public. It's a little bit different, that it's not attached to a restaurant, but it will be in front of a cluster of restaurants or outdoor cafe shops, and it's a public outdoor patio that is in parking spots. So it's just interesting to see what the places around us are doing, because that does impact us. If there's more outdoor seating availability in DC, then we're going to lose people to different places around us.
Okay, we do have another question from John Weistat. John asks, I guess this is for Brett, if maybe for John too, do you find that people are taking into account outdoor dining when developers when proposing site plans? I don't have, okay, here it is. Are you finding that new site plan applicants are taking outdoor dining options into account in their initial site plan requests? And can the county encourage this?
Yeah, I can speak to this. Yeah, that's often the case that with brand new development projects, that we like to identify spaces for outdoor cafes early in the process so that those spaces are carved out of public spaces, for example. So if there's a outdoor cafe that's adjacent to a public plaza, and we certainly support outdoor cafes to activate public spaces. They do a great job of activating public plazas and parks. But if we can, carve out the space early on in the design and planning process where those spaces will be, that's ideal, and that then those spaces would not be included as part of a public access easement or a space that's dedicated for the public use. It's not encouraged to think of these things as an afterthought, and that's sometimes happens, unfortunately, but where we have public spaces that have been planned and designed for, that have been in place for years, where an outdoor cafe and operator wants to come in and encroach upon that public space. And so we have to then weigh them on a number of factors, including the public spaces master plan and design guidelines. But it's better if it's the outdoor cafe is thought of early on in the design process, so that it's not included as part of any kind of public dedicated access easements.
Okay, this is more of a comment than a question. This is from okay, it's somebody from Ed. He says in our area, people have been forced into the street for walking, and this person doesn't think that people should be forced in the street to walk for outdoor cafes. And I know you talked about that, Brett, but is there any kind of general policy that the county is adopting there, or is it on a case-by-case basis?
So the images that I showed earlier in my presentation of where we've done that includes Campbell Avenue, which I'm sure a lot of them are familiar with, where we have a lot of restaurants where we've done that. That was only to accommodate the temporary outdoor seating area. So those accommodations are temporary. And working with our colleagues in our transportation department, we are not looking to continue that practice of pushing pedestrians into the on-street parking lane for circulation. Pedestrians should be able to use the sidewalk and be able to stroll and walk along the store frontages and look at menus and do the typical things that you do when you walk along a sidewalk. And so that was a temporary measure that we put in place for the pandemic that we're not currently looking to continue. However, it'll be a phased approach. Again, not everything's just going to shut down on August the 15th. We want to work with applicants and restaurants to ensure that we're making a smooth transition for any kind of deployment or decommissioning of spaces like that for pedestrians, because we want to ensure that if we take the pedestrian circulation out of the street, that we have adequate circulation on the sidewalk. And so that means there may be some adapted shuffling of the layout of the outdoor cafe on the sidewalk. So that's something. There's only a couple of cases of those in the county, but that's something that we're actively thinking about in terms of the messaging to the restaurants, but also how we do the implementation or decommissioning of some of those pedestrian circulation spaces.
If I could just add one little thing, just the original comment is, while I do very much get that concerns of the sidewalk of the right of way being crowded and pedestrians forced, while I'm aware that that has been kind of the case, so I'm not too familiar with the specific area that's being mentioned in the comments of the village of Arlington. I'm not down there quite that often, but I think I would just reiterate that I think in the case of making public policy in this case, there are going to be some instances where it isn't necessarily realistic to solve every single problem that is part of this very multifaceted issue, where you're included, as Brett mentioned, over 100 different temporary outdoor seating areas. Sometimes it is, I think, especially in this case, wise to proceed ahead and then in the process of implementation identify certain issues and problems that have been the case, as opposed to trying to solve every single one of these before moving forward, if that makes sense.
Great. Yeah, it looks like we've come to the end of our allotted time. So I want to thank our panelists for being with us tonight and for giving us a lot of useful information and a lot to think about, and maybe to take this information when we're talking to our elected officials and letting them know what we think should be the public policies in this area. I want to, let me see here, I have to, yeah, oops. Okay, yeah. I want to just ask you to be with us for a few minutes here as we complete, oops. Yeah, I want to remind you that the Arlington Committee of 100 plans to take a break for the summer and to resume our second Wednesday of the month programming on September 13th, 2023. We don't have topics approved yet, nor have we finalized the time or format for our programs, and whether they will be virtual programs or hybrid programs. So I think we'll always have an online presence, but we have had in-person meetings combined with virtual meetings in the past, and we decide to do that in the future. We will be back in September. Watch your email boxes and look at the local press and check our website for the scheduling of our programs as they occur. And before closing tonight, since this is my last program as chairperson of the Arlington Committee of 100, I want to thank our membership and the board for giving me the privilege and opportunity to serve as your chair this year. It's been an honor and privilege, and to serve such an awesome organization and work with such fantastic people. I look forward to continuing to work with Jean Broyhill, my successor as chairperson, and a very competent chairperson I'm sure she'll be. Finally, if you want to watch the recording of tonight's program, you can like our Facebook page and view Facebook Live. Consider sharing the Facebook Live with your friends if this program is something that you think would be of interest to them. And also the recording of tonight's program will be posted on the Arlington Committee of 100s in due course. Again, thanks for joining us tonight. Thanks to the speakers especially for joining us. Have a great summer, and we look forward to seeing you again in September. The meeting is adjourned.
Well, thank you all.